And every time that happens, I'm just going to paste it in. So I think we're good, and I think it's vocal time. You ready? Okay, here we go. I'm going to deal with Ziggy's vocal first because it is much more of the traditional lead vocal, plus it is the sung melody lead vocal. So it's going to have most of the interaction with the horns melodically and harmonically, as well as the background vocals. The Uroi vocal is going to be a very special case, and I'm just going to have to make sure he's loud and proud and doing his job. But sonically, I feel like Ziggy's vocal is going to take a little more work, so I'm going to start there. First thing I'm going to do is solo it up just to have a listen so I know what it is that he's doing.
Fly Rasta. Now fly Rasta.
Go to a verse.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead.
So overall, it sounds pretty good. I'm hearing something that's a little bit thick, and then I'm also wanting it to be a bit brighter. The brighter thing I think I'm going to do with the affects as opposed to EQ. But let me bring up an EQ37 and sort of sweep around in the low mids and see if I can find anything that sounds really muffled. And if so, I'm going to dip a little bit of it out and probably use a low shelf below it to keep the present low end, but get rid of some of the thickness. And if I don't find anything that's consistent, I'm going to leave it alone and try to just brighten up above it, and we'll see how that works.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head.
Okay, now vocal is something that I really feel you need to feel the impact of it, the same way you do with the kick and snare. So this is something where I'm going to be monitoring loud to get my vocal sound, because I've got to make sure that when he sings a closed vowel sound, that it actually really hits me in the chest. So I'm going to crank it up a little bit. We'll listen through with and without this EQ and see if it's working.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation.
I actually like that a lot. I think it's really helping. So a couple of things that I do on a lot of vocal tracks, so I tend to just try them to see if they work, is I always try a Phoenix just to see, because vocal was always one of the things when I was recording on tape that always benefited. It never sounded worse coming off tape than it did in input unless there was something wrong with the tape machine, just the way that compression worked. And for a subtle version of that, one of my favorite plugins is the Phoenix. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. And basically, there are 5 different algorithms on this plugin. 4 of them mainly deal with lots of top end, and they all sound different. You just have to learn them. And then there's one called Dark Essence, which the more you crank it, the more it starts to really push the low end. I think we're okay in the low end, but I'm going to go ahead and listen to what happens on the Dark Essence.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation.
It's a little much, so let's try Radiant for some reason.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead.
Okay, that's sounding really good to me. Another thing that I'll often use directly on the vocal, and it's kind of the only other thing I ever use, is just the Renaissance vocal compressor. It's a very, very simple compressor. I don't want to be thinking about my compression at this point. And I'll just use a tiny touch of it because it has this auto makeup gain on it, which basically it's going to help me make the vocal louder without having to really think about it too much.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head. Oh.
I think I actually like it better without, so I'm just going to make it inactive. I'll keep it around because you never know. So I think we're ready to drop it into the track just to see where it's at, and then I'm going to go back, solo it up, and we'll add some parallel compression to it and some effects. But I want to kind of feel how it sits with everything.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta.
Okay, I know we need the Apex, I know we need the parallel compression, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. These sends have come in from, most of the sends have come in from my template, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn some things on, and then I'll show you what they are. The first thing is a vocal crush. As you can probably guess, it's a parallel compressor used almost exclusively on vocal. It doesn't always mean that I will only use it on the vocal, but if I call it vocal crush, I know exactly what it is. And what it is in this case is an 1176. This one happens to be the Waves CLA 76, which to me is kind of the grainiest of all the models, which I really, really like for this kind of application. It's all buttons in, attack and release, all the way down, all the way up. So I have an incredibly slow attack and an incredibly fast release. So this is going to be really spitty. And then I'll drive into it. And this level tends to work pretty well. So we'll just start with this level. I'm not really going to mess with the settings on this compressor too much. What I'm going to do is mess with either the send into it or the return and get a balance between the aggressiveness of this compressor and the spittiness and my dry vocal, which doesn't have any compression on it whatsoever.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation.
Okay, so now I'm going to mute that, play back the vocal. I'll bring it in about halfway through the verse, and the level is going to jump up quite a bit, but you can also really hear a difference in the character of the vocal.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead.
Same two lines with it.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead.
And you can see from the meter we're compressing a lot. Let me play it one more time and watch the compression meter.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead.
But because we're adding it in parallel, it doesn't have a crushed feel to it. It just feels like he sat up a little bit, a little more on fire. And that's what we've been doing to all of the instruments, just trying to make them a little more exciting. The next thing I know we're going to need is some effects. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on that send. And then I'll just put him back in the track, and I'm going to bring that send up until it sounds good to me.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta, fly Rasta, root to the and root, true to the and truth. Now there's an evil which we've seen on the.
So really quickly, let me play you a little bit with and without this Aphex.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord.
Same line without the Aphex.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord.
Now, I use Aphex on the vocals because it's a very different process to EQ. EQ basically just boosts a frequency, whereas the Aphex, I mean, it's patented and I don't know what the special sauce is, but it's a very dynamic process. It's also a very grainy process. And there's something about it that sounds like a record to me. So it's a totally different character than EQ. The other thing is, instead of individually EQing everything that wants to have this sort of sheen on top, by using one thing on a send, I actually end up with this great kind of sheen shared by all the stuff that should have it, and it's all at exactly the same frequency, and it feels the same. So it's almost like using a reverb, but it acts like EQ. The same way using parallel compression can act like EQ and can act like an excitement fader, which you can't really get away with direct compression, because you're going to crush the crap out of something and add a little bit of it in, which is a totally different feel to directly compressing something. It's just a different way of doing it, and it's something that my ear really seems to like. The next thing is the vocal's super dry. This track is not dry at all. The drums are dry, the bass is dry. That's kind of it. Everything else has some reverb, so obviously he's got to live in a space too. So there's a vocal reverb in the session from my template, which I think we already had a look at. That's our plate. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn on that send, and it'll bring some of that up, and that should help glue it in with the backgrounds because they're going to live in the same space.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta.
So I like that, but it actually feels a little bit dark to me. So I'm just going to open up the filter before it and take out a little more of the low end on the way in.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your...
The one last thing I'm going to do to see if I can make them sound a little less dry, sink back in the mix a little more, is something from my template called Spread. And all that is it's based on the micro pitch slap program from an H3000, which I've used for years and years in the hardware. I've made lots of different versions of this with the 910. At the moment, I've got the little micro shift on setting 3 and 100% wet, and let's see how that sounds on him.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta. Fly Rasta. Root to the and root. True to the and truth.
So I like a little bit of that. It helps sink them in a little bit. Now, the next thing I'm going to do before Uroy, it's only because I'm scared of Uroy, because if you get that wrong, you've blown the whole track. Doesn't matter what the rest of it sounds like. If you remember from way back when, I've got this master fader for my router. So this is controlling how much of my stereo mix gets into all the plugins on my stereo bus. So now I'm just going to have a look at the 33609, which is my main stereo compressor. I'm going to see how many dB of compression we're getting, and I just know from experience it should be somewhere around 4. If it's more than that, I'm going to drop this fader down. If it seems like I could push it, I'm going to try pushing it just to see what it does to the groove, because it's really going to change the groove. So we're watching this meter here to see if it gets up to around 4, and I'm going to be changing this level to see what happens.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta. Fly Rasta. Root to the and root.
All right, I like that. One last thought I had while doing it to glue the vocal back in is I'm going to get rid of this horn reverb bus, and I'm going to pop the lead vocal into the rear bus. I should be able to turn them down when I do that, because it's going to pick up a lot of level. But again, now the background vocals, the horns, the keyboards will all be pumping that compressor that has the vocal in it. So this may help glue it back in a little more.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta. Fly Rasta. Root to the and root. True to the and truth.
Okay, so I like it in the rear bus, and the last thing I just did before I hit stop was to bring the backgrounds up. And what that does is it gives the lead vocal an excuse for being how loud and present it is, because the other vocals are as loud and present. So let me do that for you while the track is playing. I'm going to go back down 2 dB on the background vocals and play a little bit of the verse into the chorus.
No razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta. Fly Rasta.
Okay, so now all I'm going to do is turn the backgrounds up 2 dB.
No razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta. Fly Rasta. Root.
So I'm going to have to do vocal rides, but now it makes a lot more sense to me. Everybody's sort of living in the same spot. Okay, I can't put it off any longer. It's time to check out Uroi. This is the thing that made me the most nervous, was getting this right. So let's just check him out at the end of the song, have a listen, and sort of see what we're going to do.
When I say naughty, rougher than rough and tougher than tough, as I was saying, yeah, we got the miracle stuff, and that ain't no bluff, as I will tell it to you.
All right, so let's get to work. I think the first thing we're going to do is some sort of similar work on the low end of this, because I feel like there's something holding the voice back. So I'm going to search around for some low end stuff.
When I say naughty, rougher than rough and tougher than tough, as I was saying, yeah, we got the miracle stuff, and that ain't no bluff, as I will tell it to you. Yeah, Jaja picnic stand up firm, but cannot be eaten by no worm. Yes, as I will tell you each and every day.
So adding a little bit of body, sort of in the same range we took out of Ziggy's voice. It's a little bit higher, but I think it needs it. Now, there's something kind of annoying.
When I say naughty, rougher than rough and tougher than tough, as I was saying, yeah, we got the miracle stuff, and that ain't no bluff, as I will tell it to you. Yeah, Jaja picnic stand up firm, but cannot be eaten by no worm. Yes, as I will tell you each and every day from the sound of leads away. So you fit jump up naughty, and no fly master. Yes, as I would say, love is all I've got. You gotta hit the spot from the top to the very last drop, ain't no turning back. Tell it to me, like I would say. Let love shine bright along the way, let doubt go, but let love stay.
So what I'm doing here is I actually have two overlapping bands in the same spot. There's a nasal thing that's bugging me, but I also feel like I want some presence. So I'm going to do kind of a tight band, taking out at the frequency I found that was really hitting me. And then I'm going to add in that same area with a wider band, and that'll make it feel as though it still has that mid-range presence, but hopefully cut back on the stuff that's really barking at my eardrum.
When I say naughty, rougher than rough and tougher than tough, as I was saying, yeah, we got the miracle stuff, and that ain't no bluff, as I will tell it to you.
All right, we're getting somewhere. So now, just because you can, let's pop a 1073 style thing on there. I have very standard settings for vocals. The same way kick and snare, I've got some really good starting places. That would be to use some of the high shelf, to use some of that 7.2 mid band, and in combination with the shelf, that'll really set the top end going. And then for body, possibly some 220. So we'll just run this and see what happens.
When I say naughty, rougher than rough and tougher than tough, as I was saying, yeah, we got the miracle stuff, and that ain't no bluff, as I will tell it to you. Yeah, Jaja picnic stand up firm, but cannot be eaten by no worm. Yes, as I will tell you each and every day from the sound of leads away. So
Getting good. As always, we'll try some compression. I'll try the usual first. Just a little Renaissance vocals. See what happens.
When I say naughty, rougher than rough and tougher than tough, as I was saying, yeah, we got the miracle stuff, and that ain't no bluff, as I will tell it to you. Yeah, Jaja picnic stand up firm, but cannot be eaten by no worm. Yes, as I will tell you each and every day from the sound of leads away. So you fit jump up naughty, and no fly master.
I'm not sure about that. Let me move that guy over, and let's try. The only other hardware compressor I ever really put on a vocal is an LA2A, so let's try one of those, and just see what happens. Now, by the way, on a lot of the Waves models, you see this 50 hertz, 60 hertz, and off function for the analog, and that's on a lot of their plugins. What they've done is they've modeled all the parts of the circuit that actually make noise, that are reacting to the power supply. And the reason there's a 50 hertz version and a 60 hertz version is for US power 60 hertz, European power at 50 hertz. I find 90% of the time there's no sonic benefit to having that part of the circuit in, and the noise can sometimes be crazy. So I always turn that stuff off right away. So let's see what this guy does to it.
When I say naughty, rougher than rough and tougher than tough, as I was saying, yeah, we got the miracle stuff, and that ain't no bluff, as I will tell it to you. Yeah, Jaja picnic stand up firm, but cannot be eaten by no worm. Yes, as I will tell you each and every day from the sound of leads away. So you fit jump.
All right, that's starting to sound good to me. I'm going to drop them in the track, and I'm going to turn on our vocal crush send, our affect send, and the spread send, because I'm almost positive all three of those are going to be good. But I'll go ahead and mute them. And while I play the track with him in it, I'm going to start bringing those in.
When I say naughty, rougher and tougher than tough, as I was saying, yeah, we got the miracle stuff, and that ain't no bluff, as I will tell it to you. Yeah, judge and pick this stand up firm, but cannot be eaten by no worm. Yeah, as I will tell you each and every day from the sound will lead the way. So you fit jump up, not take, ain't no flying master. Yeah, as I would say, love is all I've got. You gotta hit spot from the top of the Babylon's drum, ain't no turning back. And tell it to me, like I would say, let love shine from along the way, let down go, but let love stay. Flying master.
All right, now let's see if we need any reverb on him.
When I say not you rougher than rough and tougher than tough, as I would say, yeah, we got no miracle stuff, but that ain't no blumpers, I will tell it to you. Yeah, judge and pick this stand up firm, but cannot be eaten by no worm. Yeah, as I will tell you each and every day from the sound.
Okay, so the only thing I think we still need is he needs to live in a space, because this is sort of a dance hall thing that happens, and it would normally be through a PA. So I always have a slap in my template, and let's just go ahead and see how that works. And if the slap that comes with the template doesn't work, then we're going to go ahead and get something else going. All I'm using, again, is some filters on the way to the Roland Space Echo. And we've got other choices. This is just what I happen to be using around the time I made the template.
I say not you rougher than rough and tougher than tough, as I would say. Yeah, we got no miracle stuff, but that ain't no blumpers, I will tell it to you.
Okay, now the real test is how this sounds bringing the track in.
Now this is that you right upside the man comes Ziggy Marley with a miracle sound saying, fly Rasta. Fly Rasta. No fly Rasta.
All right, now he's sounding really good to me, actually. But what it's pointing out, there are a few elements of the mix that are feeling a little dull, especially after getting Uroy sounding so good. So I think I'm going to revisit Ziggy's vocal sound and the snare and see if that's enough. And if not, then we'll dive into a few other instruments. But I think we're getting pretty close to automation time. So I'm just going to be jumping around a little bit while the track plays, and you'll see what I'm doing.
You right upside the man comes Ziggy Marley with a miracle sound saying, fly Rasta. Fly Rasta. No fly Rasta. Got to hold up your head, y'all. Redder than red. Say not you rougher than rough. Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta. My digging Selassie. Fly Rasta.
Okay, there's one thing I actually want to try is adding a tiny bit of reverb to the snare. Again, I'm not a huge proponent of reverb on drums, but like with the toms, it's more of an effect, and the snare, it's more of just trying to lengthen the snare naturally, but without doing something that really sticks out. So you almost feel as though the snare was just tuned differently, and what I'm really starting to feel is that the gate that we've got on the snare that's making it tight and getting rid of the ghosts is good for the groove, but bad for the sound. So I'm going to try and lengthen it with some reverb. I've got a kind of ambient reverb in the template, which is basically an ambience program in Revibe, and let's see how that works.
You right upside the man comes Ziggy Marley with a miracle sound saying, fly Rasta. Fly Rasta. No fly Rasta. Fly Rasta. Dreader than dread. Not you got to hold up your head, y'all. Redder than red. Say not you rougher than rough. Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta. My digging Selassie. Fly Rasta. So we say. Root to the and root. Not to ever speak the truth. True to the.
Automation time. So when I'm automating, when I'm mixing on a console and there are tons of faders, I can grab lots of things at once. I've tried lots of different controllers for mixing in the box, and I really don't like any of them. So I've ended up using my Frontier Alpha Track, which I've had for years. It's a single fader controller, and in a lot of ways, I've found that it has made me much more focused in my mixing, and I really kind of enjoy it. A shortcut that is awesome when you have a controller is if you hold down Shift and Control and click on any track's name, it immediately does the scroll into view command, which also puts it on the first fader of your controller. So what I'm going to do is pop these guys into touch. Going to do the drums first because they're pretty steady state, but they make the transitions well with the fills. And I'm just going to be pushing the fills as they go by and also kind of faking some dynamics into them to make some of the sections build more, like the end of the break, stuff like that. One thing that's really cool about having one fader is when you have lots of faders, you can get distracted and you think you're riding the drums, but then you touch the bass fader and then the lead vocal, and really all that's happened is you've stopped riding the drums. So this way, I'm going to ride the drums all the way start to finish, and it's going to be awesome. So here we go.
Now this is that you right upside the man comes Nigga Marley with a miracle sound saying,
Fly Rasta. Fly Rasta. No fly Rasta. Fly Rasta. Dreader than and dread.
now you got to hold up your head, yo.
Redder than and red.
Say not you rougher than rough.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see no dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta,
Mighty King Selassie,
fly Rasta,
so we say,
root to the and root,
not you ever speak the truth.
true to the and truth.
Almighty Jaja,
Now there's an evil which we've seen under the sun. It is common among men. For what have the fool more than the wise? Man can't live alone on bread.
no ways I would say,
Delight in the laws of Jaja,
after the most I Jah,
and on Jah meditate day and
live it
night.
in the raining hearts of every man I've seen the one.
Like the tree planted by
When
water,
I sit back up with the ism, schism, and your
whose
folly,
leaves never wither.
just you be jolly as I would say.
Oh, fly Rasta. No fly Rasta.
Fly you not the dread,
Dreader than and dread.
so not the heavier than lead, yo.
Oh, it's redder than and red.
Give thanks and praise each and every day. When I say, blessed is the man and walking down in the counsel of the ungodly, no standing in the ways of sinners, like I would say.
Take the vow of separation.
In all the days of your life,
Let no razor come upon your
Flash your
head.
naughty dread, fly naughty dread. So we tougher than tough and we rougher than rough. Come we got the musical stuff that I would say.
Fly Rasta.
Till this,
So fly Rasta. Fly Rasta. No fly Rasta. No wicked.
naughty ever speak the truth, yo.
Lord is redder than and red.
Naughty don't tell no lie.
No fly Rasta.
Naughty redder than red, yo.
Oh fly Rasta.
Run with Babylon. Till it to me.
Root is off the root.
They're not you redder than red, yo.
Now the truth is off the
They're
truth.
not the heavier than lead. When I say not the rougher than rough and tougher than tough, I would say.
Just going to back up. It was a little too loud coming out of that section.
The truth is off the
They're
truth.
not the heavier than lead. When I say not the rougher than rough and tougher than tough, I would say. Yeah, we got no miracle stuff, but that ain't no bluffers, I will tell it to you. Yeah, Jaja pick this stand up firm, but cannot be eaten by no worm. Yeah, cause I will tell you each and every day from the sound will lead the way. So you fit jump up, not take, and no fly master. Yeah, as I would say, love is all I've got. Gotta hit spot from the top of the Babylon, strong ain't no turning back. Tell it to me, like I would say. Let love shine from along the way, let down go, but let love stay. Fly Rasta. Fly Rasta.
Okay, I'm going to bring down the snare reverb because it's bugging me a little bit. And I'm just going to concentrate on the breakdown for a second because I feel like I know how to fix it and I want to just do it. I'm going to ride the congas first because they're kind of a big deal going on here. So let me make sure that the group for the congas is on, but that the group for all of the percussion is not on. Pop those guys into touch, scroll them into view, and let's do it.
Give thanks and praise each and every day. When I say, blessed is the man and walking out in the counsel of the ungodly, and standing in the ways of sinners, like I would say.
Take the vow of separation.
In all the days of your life,
Let no razor come upon your
Flash
head.
your naughty dread, fly your naughty dread. So we tougher than tough and we rougher than rough. Come we got the musical stuff, I would say.
Fly Rasta,
Till this.
so fly.
Okay, another big part of that build is going to be the B3, which starts playing chords halfway through. So come down here, pop them in touch, scroll them into view.
Of separation.
in all the days of your life,
Let no razor come upon your
Flash your
head.
naughty dread, fly your naughty dread. So we tougher than tough and we rougher than rough. Come we got the musical stuff, I would say.
Fly Rasta,
Till this.
so fly Rasta.
And some love for the bass. I don't think I'm going to have to really ride the bass through the whole track because he's just so on it and part of the groove, but I am going to ride him going through this break.
And ready.
Give thanks and praise each and every day. When I say, blessed is the man and walking out in the counsel of the ungodly, and standing in the ways of sinners, like I would say.
Take the vow of separation.
in all the days of your life,
Let no razor come upon your
Flash your
head.
naughty dread, fly your naughty dread. So we tougher than tough and we rougher than rough. Come we got the musical stuff, I would say.
Fly Rasta,
Till this.
so fly Rasta.
All right, I think we're basically done except for riding the horns and the vocals, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you on the other side with a finished mix. So I've just finished writing all the vocals. I went back, EQ'd a tiny bit on the horns to brighten them up a little bit. No major changes, and I think we're ready to print this. It's been really fascinating to mix this song again after probably about 8 months since the first time I mixed it. It's ended up in a slightly different place, but the biggest thing is, once again, being true to the roots of the song, which is the reggae, which is supporting Uroy's vocal along with Ziggy's, really making a big deal out of the horns and the backgrounds and just making sure it grooves. So, all right, so here's the mix.
Now this is that you right upside the man comes Ziggy Marley with a miracle sound saying.
Fly Rasta,
fly Rasta,
no fly Rasta.
fly Rasta,
Dread and dread,
Now you got to hold up your head, yo.
redder and red.
Say not you rough and rough.
Take that vow of separation unto the Lord. Drink no strong drink, see the dead. And all the days of your vow of separation, no razor shall come upon your head. Oh, fly Rasta,
fly Rasta,
Mighty King Selassie.
fly Rasta.
So we say,
fly Rasta,
Root to them and root,
not to ever speak the truth.
true to them and true.
Almighty Jaja.
Now there's an evil which we've seen under the sun. It is common among men. For what have the fool more than the wise? Man can't live alone on bread.
No ways I would say.
Delight in the laws of Jaja,
After the most I Jah.
and on Jah meditate day and
Live
night.
in the rain in the hearts of a man. I see the wally.
Like a tree planted by water,
I sit back up with the ism, squeeze him on your
whose
folly.
leaves never wither.
Just you and Johnny, as I would
Oh,
say.
fly Rasta,
fly Rasta,
no fly Rasta.
Fly you not the dread.
Redder and red.
So not the heavier than lead, yo.
Oh, it's redder and red.
Give thanks and praise each and every day. When I say, blessed is the man and walking out in the counsel of the ungodly, and standing in the ways of sinners, like I would say.
take the vow of separation.
And all the days of your life.
Let no razor come upon your
Flashing
head.
naughty dread, flying naughty dread. Some we tougher than tough and we rougher than rough. Come we got the musical stuff that I was saying.
Fly Rasta,
Till them.
so fly Rasta, fly Rasta, now fly Rasta, now wicked.
Naughty ever speak the truth, yo.
Lord is greater than rain.
Naughty don't tell no lie.
Now fly Rasta,
Naughty redder than red, yo.
oh fly Rasta.
Run with Babylon. Till it to me.
Root is off the root.
They're naughty redder than red, yo.
Now the truth is off the truth.
They're naughty heavier than lead. When I say naughty rougher than rough and tougher than tough, as I was saying, yeah, we got the miracle stuff, but that ain't no bluffers, I will tell it to you. Yeah, Jaja pick this stand up firm, but cannot be eaten by no worm. Yeah, as I will tell you each and every day, but my sound will lead the way. So you feel jump up, naughty, and no fly master. Yeah, as I would say, that was all I've got. I got a hit spot from the top of the Babylon's drum, ain't no turning back. And tell it to me, like I would say, let them shine from along the way, let down go, but let them stay. Fly Rasta, fly Rasta.
Et voilà.